Good afternoon and welcome to Marketing by the Numbers. My name is Lorraine Ball and I'm going to be your presenter today. If after the program you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can find us at roundpeg.biz or certainly look for me on Twitter. Okay, let's get started. The bottom line is that marketing, especially small business marketing, is really all about getting a response. And every business owner that I talk to struggles with how much and where to spend their marketing dollars. Today's presentation is really designed to help you focus your thinking around where you should be spending and how much marketing you should be spending. So, how much should you spend? Regardless of the business that you're in, the best place to start is with questions. How much is a customer worth? How many new clients do you want? Because trying to acquire 5 new clients is a radically different process than trying to acquire 500. What's the rhythm of your business? Do you have a long or a short sales cycle? How good are you when you get a lead or a prospective customer? Where are your leads coming from? And what's your market concentration? We're going to step you through an exercise that shows you how answering each one of these questions helps you decide how much and where you should be spending your marketing. We also want at the end of the day for you to focus on measuring your results, traffics, leads, conversions, and sales. Because over time, as you pay attention to these numbers, you'll be able to refine this pyramid and get a better and better handle on how much money you should be spending. So let's start with what is a customer worth. There's a pretty simple formula that you can use, which takes a look at average annual sales, gross margin, how long an average customer stays with you, and even considers the present value of money. Let's look at a simple exercise. For example, let's assume that an average customer generates $1,000 in annual sales. Now I know a lot of you are sitting there thinking, well, but I don't have an average customer. Some people spend a few $100s a year with me, and some spend thousands. Everyone has an average. Just add up all of your sales for the last year, divide by the total number of customers, and you know what your average annual sale number is. Basically, every time a new customer walks in the door, it's realistic to assume they're going to be average. And so you build your marketing around the idea of attracting an average customer. And over time, you certainly want to increase that average sale, but you have an average. So let's go back to this example. Let's assume that your annual sales are $1,000. You want to step back and take a look at what your gross margin is. You want to subtract out any cost of goods sold. So every new customer for the business in this example brings in $300 in additional margin. On average, how long does a customer stay with you? Do they typically only buy one time and go away, or do they come back year after year after year? In this example, we've got a company that assumes most customers stay with them 5 years. And so it's realistic to assume that your average revenue stream from any given customer is $1,500. Now, these days, it's pretty easy to assume, because we're in a period of very low inflation, that whether you get paid $1,500 today or $1,500 5 years from now, it's really almost the same amount of money. But in periods of higher inflation, the longer you have to wait for your money, the less valuable it becomes. And that's where this calculation of present value comes in. And so you discount that $1,500 by whatever the going interest rate is. And that formula on the last page helps you calculate it. This is a good ballpark. So now you've got that present value. You know that an average customer is worth somewhere between $1,100 and $1,400 to your bottom line. Now you know how much you can afford to spend. As far as how much you spend, you should never spend 100% of the lifetime value of a customer. That's crazy. Why would you spend every penny that you're going to make on that customer to attract a new one? This slide is wrong. It says that your acquisition budget shouldn't exceed 50%. In truth, and this formula is actually based on it, that your acquisition budget should not be more than 30% of your lifetime value. So with a lifetime value of $1,500, you should budget about $500 per customer. How many new customers do you want? If you're looking for 10 new customers in this scenario, your marketing budget is $5,000. On the other hand, if you're looking for 100 new customers, you better be prepared to spend about $50,000. Finding new customers is expensive, and so as you're kind of mapping out your marketing budget, I always recommend setting aside funds for retention because it's significantly easier to keep those customers engaged. You essentially want to kind of complete this circle. You're going to bring in new prospects to your business, and obviously you're going to provide a wow experience. If you're not providing a wow experience, that's not a problem that marketing can solve. And then what you want to do is, after that first interaction, you want to have a process in place to stay in touch, to keep them engaged, to drive them back to your business, maybe to get them to engage with you on social media so that it drives new prospects to your business. And I'm going to show you how this kind of circular process plays out in real numbers. The first question that you really need to ask when you're building your marketing pyramid and trying to see how all of these pieces fit together is, what's the rhythm of your business or your sales cycle? Is it a daily, weekly, or monthly business? How long does it take to get a new customer? When I was in retail, if I had a dress that wasn't selling today, I could mark it down, put a sale sign on top of it, or run an ad in the newspaper and change my sales pattern tomorrow. In home services businesses like heating and air conditioning or carpet cleaning, it's a weekly business. If you run a promotion this week, you're going to fill your schedule next week. For many consulting services, it's more of a monthly rhythm, and in industries like real estate, it might even be a 3-month cycle. Regardless of what your business rhythm is, the question you have to answer is, how many customers do you want in that time period? How many customers? And I want you to think of it in terms of customers or transactions, but not dollars, because you don't market to dollars, you market to people. I may want $5,000 in sales, but that's 10 customers each buying $500 worth of stuff from me. So the first question you have to answer in order to do this exercise and start planning your budget is, how many transactions in a specific time period? Next, you have to answer the question, how good are you? What is your closing rate? If I put you face-to-face across a desk or a kitchen table from a prospective customer, how often will you walk away with a sale? If you don't know the answer to this question, stop. Stop everything and go figure it out. Take a look at how many proposals and how many sales presentations you've made in the last week or the last month, and how many times did you get a sale. Now you can calculate your closing rate. In this instance, with a closing rate of 25%, you're going to need 40 qualified leads to get 10 actual new customers. And those leads can only come from one of two places. They either come from referrals or advertising. Referrals are actually repeat customers coming back. They are your existing customers and your friends and family and whoever sending you introductions. Because let's face it, when the phone rings and the person says, "Hi, Mary Smith suggested that I call you," it's dramatically different than when the phone rings and someone says, "I found your name in the yellow pages." You know that you're going to have a much better shot at closing these referred sales. For the purpose of this exercise, let's assume that you're getting 10 good referrals towards your 40 qualified leads that you need every week. In that instance, you're going to need your advertising to drive 30 prospective customers. The problem is that when you're advertising, you're putting messages out there that are reaching people who are qualified and, quite honestly, people who are not interested. In general, depending on how often people need your product or service, maybe 1% of all of the people who see your messages are really interested. This is very true for a business like mine, web design. If I get up in front of a group of 100 business owners, I'll be lucky if one of them is looking for a new website that month. What that means is to get 30 qualified leads, I have to get my message in front of 3,000 people. For a heating and air conditioning company and a product where you only replace a furnace every 20 years, that market concentration may be more like 0.1%, requiring exposure to 30,000 impressions every single week or every single month. It would be great if the first time somebody saw your marketing or advertising, they were ready to buy. But the truth is that people need to see your information over and over again, 5 or 10 times before they're ready to buy. With so many competing messages out there, they don't even notice you the first couple of times they see your ad or your truck or your sign. And so, if you need a frequency factor of 10, that means that every week or every month, in order to get just 10 new customers, 40 qualified leads, you have to have an advertising program that makes 30,000 impressions. That's not really 30,000 different people. That may be 10 impressions on 3,000 people. But still, how do you get your message in front of all of those people? Now, let's go back to that first instance. You need 10 new customers. You've got about $500 per new customer to spend. How do you use $500 to create 30,000 impressions? Well, you can try traditional advertising, but your money doesn't go very far. Newspaper, billboards, radio, or TV eat up that budget really fast. You get too few spots and too few leads. It's really hard to reach a targeted audience on a small budget. Now, the company that's looking for 100 leads and has $50,000 to spend, this may be an appropriate fit for them. With direct mail, when you're sending 5,000 pieces, my concern is that you just don't make enough impressions. The average response rate on direct mail is between 0.5% and 2%. So with a well-targeted list, you may generate between 25 and 100 responses. So even though the impressions are a little bit lower, you may get close to enough people picking up the telephone, depending on how targeted your list is, and how good your offer is that you may actually get people to come through. So certainly for a small business on a limited budget, choosing between traditional advertising and something like direct mail, I'm always going to recommend direct mail, but it's still very expensive and it's a little bit of a crapshoot if you're not really confident in the quality of your marketing piece. I think that's why I tend to gravitate towards web marketing and social media. For $500, you can certainly, on social media, you can certainly generate the required number of impressions. You can easily reach 5, 10, 15,000 people on Facebook. The challenge is you're getting in front of a lot of people, but they may not be serious buyers. Conversely, Google AdWords can reach serious buyers, but depending on your category, it can be a little bit expensive. Organic traffic is free. If you've got content on your website and you're showing up in search engines, but don't kid yourself, there's a cost to generating that content. So again, small business, limited budget, I wouldn't recommend traditional advertising. I think that there are opportunities with web marketing and social media, but none of these things are perfect. So how do you manage getting 5,000 impressions or 30,000 impressions for $5,000? Well, the best way to do it is to stretch your dollars by shaking up the pyramid. And so I'm going to show you two different things that you can do to rearrange the numbers and get them to work in your favor. The first is close more. Let's look at what happens to the required number of impressions and how much advertising you need to do if you simply get better at closing. If your closing rate goes from 25% to 50%, so you start closing more and more of your opportunities, now you only need 20 qualified leads. You're still getting 10 from your referral sources and your repeat business. You only need 10 from advertising. Even if your market concentration is the same and your frequency factor is the same, suddenly you only need to make 10,000 impressions to get your transactions. So your $5,000 doesn't need to make 30,000 impressions, it only needs to make 10,000 impressions. So how do you improve your closing rate? There are three things that will allow you to close more sales. The first is you've got to improve your sales skills. Now, I'm not a sales trainer. I don't teach sales training. However, if this is an area where you think you could benefit from some improvement, I'm going to tell you that investing in sales training is one of the best things that you can do. If you're not sure, invite someone to go along on a sales call with you. Now, it has to be someone who has no vested interest in the outcome of the sale. Don't invite your spouse, don't invite your boss, don't invite a coworker. Every one of those people has a reason why they want that sale to succeed, and they have in their mind how they think it should go. Ideally, if you've got a friend who's a pharmaceutical rep or an insurance professional, invite them to ride with you. These people typically have some of the best sales training, and they may see things as they're watching you sell that will help and coach you to improve your techniques. But maybe if somebody goes with you on a sales call and they're like, no, I thought you were really good. I just thought the guy was wrong, that he really wasn't interested. That is a case for improving your marketing. What that tells me is if you're good at sales, but you keep getting people who aren't a fit for your business, there's something in your marketing that's driving the wrong people to your business. Maybe you're sending out a flyer promoting high-end services, but the first time someone squirms a little about the price, you start talking about discount, discount, discount. Or maybe on the other side of it, you're trying to sell a high-end service and you're using business cards printed from Vistaprint. Your marketing and your product aren't lining up, and you're confusing prospects, and so they don't buy. And the last way to close more is increase qualified referrals. Let's go back to the situation where you have a 25% closing rate. What happens to the mathematics if you get 20 referrals instead of 10? Suddenly you only need 20 advertising leads, and again, you see the numbers going down. The truth is you need to do both things. You need to get better at sales, and you need to increase referrals. Honestly, the more leads you get from this side of your marketing, the higher this closing rate is going to go, for that same reason I explained before. When people are referred, they come into the conversation almost, I don't want to say predestined to buy, but they're sort of already kind of ready to buy, and you just have to close them. You've already been endorsed by someone they trust. That's a very different conversation than the skeptical customer or prospective customer coming to you from an ad on the yellow pages. This is also where a lot of your inbound marketing helps, because people who come to you up through the advertising side, if you have a way of staying in touch with them and giving them information in little bites, again, it kind of moves them over to this side where they sort of think they know you by the time they pick up the phone. So how do you increase referrals and retention? Well, part of it is creating incentives and bonus programs. When was the last time you asked clients, family, friends, business associates to recommend someone? When was the last time you offered them something in exchange? And it doesn't always have to be money. I had one client who used to buy dinner. He would send gift certificates for dinner to clients who sent him a new client. I had another client who simply dropped a $5 Starbucks card in the mail every time one of his clients endorsed him on Yelp or Google+. Frequent shoppers are great ways to encourage people to come back. My favorite yogurt shop gives me a little bit of credit. Every time I come in and buy yogurt and I punch in my phone number, I get so much credit based on how much I buy on any given day. And every now and then I get an email, typically on a hot summer's day, or a text message that says, hey, you've got enough credit for a free ice cream cone. Why don't you come back and see us? And you know that I do, and I always bring 2 or 3 friends. If you're focused on referrals and retention, use both email and social media to build loyalty, to build those connections, and to stay in touch. One of the things that I really like doing, and we do this for a number of our clients, is they've got a referral network. I have one client that he sells carpet and flooring, and his best referral sources are real estate agents. And so he actually sends an email every month to real estate agents designed for them to then pass on to their customers. The other thing is get out and network. You can't just do this sitting behind your desk. Expand your professional connections and your referral network by going face-to-face and meeting people. Marketing has changed. 25 years ago, you could focus most of your efforts on finding new customers, a little bit on converting them, and then just a tinge on keeping them. But we are long past the era of mass marketing, and today it's just the opposite. Today, you want to focus the vast majority of your marketing dollars on keeping clients. And that's really where, again, a lot of email and social media allows you to stay in touch with people and allows you to control your marketing expenses, because it's a lot less expensive to sell more to these people than to find some of these. quick overview of the numbers that I think drive your marketing. If you've enjoyed today's session, this is really only the first in a long series of programs put together by RoundPeg. We market all of these classes under the umbrella of groundwork sessions. There are actually 7 different topics, this one and 6 more longer sessions in the program. And you can find the latest schedule on groundworksessions.com. You can also find a mixture of other classes on our RoundPeg site, but this core curriculum of groundwork classes that help you go from start to finish on building a marketing plan, we've bundled on this separate website. On the Groundwork Sessions website, you'll also find our resource library with supplemental worksheets and guides and seminar recordings. And you certainly have an opportunity, if you have questions and want to book a session with us, to book one of those sessions at $150 an hour. If you've got questions after today's program, if you'd like more information, please reach out and follow up. And I hope to see you at one of our upcoming sessions.